So what we have here today is probably the most cleanest looking GPU on the market right now. And what I'm talking about is the Founders Edition RTX 4070 Super. And I actually picked this thing up pre-owned as a replacement for my Founders Edition 4090. Now before I get too much into that topic, let's just crack this thing open and see what it looks like. So taking a look at the box, it's very clean and just blacked out all the way. And opening it up, as you can see, wow, would you look at that? It looks absolutely incredible. Now the only difference for the Super Edition cards is that they're just all blacked out compared to the standard versions. The body style is exactly the same, but I think the blacked out finish just makes it look so much more sleek, and it looks great if you have like a exposed build, like a open air case. I've seen some people actually custom paint their original silver versions, or they took it apart and vinyl wrapped it. Personally, I wouldn't do that because you can either damage your GPU, ruin the warranty coverage on it, and on top of that, with how much heat these cards produce, it'll probably damage the finish in just a few months. Now, I'm gonna take this thing out of here real quick, and like I said, I did get this thing pre-owned, so it's not in mint condition. There are some specks of dust, maybe some minor scratches and whatnot, but overall, it's in pretty good shape. And just looking at the overall form factor, it is quite tiny. It's significantly smaller than like a 4080 or a 4090. Now, if you have like an open air build or a case that has a glass panel, you can definitely show off the style of this. Personally, it doesn't really matter just because my case has a closed side, so you don't really see the GPU in there, but I always like to get the Founders Edition cards just because of the value retention. Now, I want to talk a little bit about why I picked up the 4070 and got rid of my 4090, and it's quite straightforward. It's not like a crazy explanation to it. It's for the price. So with the recent release of the 50 series cards, they've been pretty much selling out everywhere. And of course, we have scalpers that are going to inflate the price like crazy. So realistically, you're not going to be able to get your hands on a 50 series card for a reasonable price. That also boosted the price of all the pre-owned flagship GPUs. Stuff like the 4090, 4080, 3090, so on and so forth. But strangely enough, all of the lower generation cards, like the 60s, anything that ends with that or anything that ends with a 70, the prices of those cards don't really seem affected. We literally see a whole bunch of 3060s and 4060s sitting on shelves collecting dust, still listed at their original price. So basically what I've done is I've sold my 4090 because I can make a profit. My 4090 specifically, I bought it about a year ago for maybe 1,900 bucks. And I was able to sell it now for around 2,500 flat. And I think that price is pretty reasonable considering today's market value, but there are plenty of 4090s selling on eBay for upwards of 3 grand, sometimes even 4 grand, which just boggles my mind. And because the 4090 was my main GPU, selling it does mean I have to get a replacement. And that is the time when I had to reassess my needs. Do I really need a 4090? And am I even making use of the one that I had? Now, if you are a hardcore gamer and you really care about the frame rates, you really care about the visual qualities, then something like that would really matter to you. But as someone who just primarily does video editing, I really feel like the 4090 was a bit overkill for my workflow. And if you think about what the 4090 or any of these GPUs are really designed for, they are gaming GPUs, So with that being the focus, the main area that you're gonna see the differences between all these different cards is when you're gaming. And the only times that I would launch up a game is for testing purposes. So I was more than willing to downgrade my GPU if my only sort of requirement is just editing videos. The reason why I got this card specifically is because it has the best performance to price ratio. But for less than half the cost, you're getting most of the performance that a 4090 can do, especially when it comes to video editing. Looking at some benchmarks from PudgetSystems.com, they did a test for all the RTX series cards in Premiere Pro. And when you start looking at these numbers, you start to realize that the differences between each card doesn't really matter when it comes to editing. I primarily use Premiere Pro for my workflow. And the demand that program has is not so crazy to the point where you need to have a flagship GPU. Does it help? Yes, it does, but is it a requirement? Not necessarily. There would be a bigger discrepancy for people who like to do like very heavy edits, 3D rendering and all these different things, but I just make YouTube videos. So a 4090 just to edit some YouTube videos seems a little bit much. So with that, downgrading to a card like this I'm not making a huge sacrifice in editing performance. On top of that, I'm putting a lot more money back into my pockets. Now, everyone watching this video is not necessarily going to be a video editor or a content creator, so I do want to touch about the gaming performance of a 4070 Super. Now, if we're going to be comparing apples to apples, a 4070 versus something like a 4090 is definitely significantly slower. But what NVIDIA has recently done is they boosted all the RTX cards, especially the older generations, with some software updates. So NVIDIA recently announced the DLSS 4, which is a optimization feature in games that will significantly boost the performance of your GPU. You can almost double your frame rate. So if this card, for example, can run a 4K game at medium settings at 50 FPS, now you can expect to get maybe 80, 90, even 100 FPS running the same exact settings. So is it really a downgrade at that point? Because I sold my 4090, downgraded my card physically, yes, but then that card's performance just basically doubled through a software update. And so I'm starting to feel like this is such a great card for the price right now. For around $800 or maybe $700, you can look around a little deeper. If anything, you can probably get it for even less, maybe for $700, just because this is a Founders Edition card. So you are paying the Founders Premium, if you will. But I really think that the 4070 Super is a very well-balanced card that offers incredible performance. You can edit on it, you can game at 4K on it. And on top of that, it just looks freaking amazing. Just look at the build of this card. And if you guys know anything about my PC build, it's a mini ITX, which is a very crammed up and small case. And so with this being a little bit smaller in form factor, it does give me a little bit more room within the case, allowing for better airflow and just thermal capacity. So this is going to be a lot more cooler, a lot more quieter, and it also takes a lot less energy and less wattage to run. Because not only did NVIDIA optimize these lower end cards to be more efficient, much more powerful, but you can also overclock them yourself and undervolt them to be even more efficient and have even more performance, making this card be an even better value in 2025. And if you are someone who's looking for a new GPU, this is definitely something to consider. If you are looking to get a little bit more performance and you don't want something like a 4070, the 4080 is also a great value. For around $1,000, you're getting only 25% less performance compared to a 4090 at only half the cost. I don't think right now is a good time to buy any flagship GPU. All the prices are just inflated and not worth it. And NVIDIA also said they're going to be restocking a lot of the new 50 series cards, so I think you should wait if you are looking to get a newer card, because at that point when they do release the restocks and more models and whatnot, the prices are going to come back down. And if you are someone who's looking to sell their GPU, right now is absolutely the best time to do so, especially if you're holding on to a very expensive higher tier card. Don't take any financial advice from me because I'm not a financial advisor, but at least from how I'm looking at the market and how I'm able to kind of maneuver around it, I think this is definitely a good time to either downgrade your card or keep your old card. So hopefully this video will give you guys some insight on the whole GPU market. If this is something that you guys might consider, let me know in the comment section below. With that being said, thank you all for watching. Make sure to drop a like and a comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as well as turn on the post notifications. And with that being said, I will see you in the next one. Peace.